One narrow waterway now holds the global economy hostage. The Strait of Hormuz, barely 2 miles wide at its tightest point, carries nearly 1/5 of the world's oil. And now Iran is quietly deciding who passes and who doesn't. 2 Chinese vessels just made it through, not by chance, by permission. At the same time, Washington signals diplomacy while threatening to strike Iran's energy lifeline. This isn't a full blockade, not yet. It's something more precise, more controlled. It's a pressure valve. Oil prices have already surged over 50% in weeks. But that spike may only be the beginning, because this isn't just about ships. It's about leverage. And what happens next could redefine how energy flows across the world. But to understand why Iran is tightening its grip now, we need to go back. This pattern is not new. Iran has threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz for decades, but rarely follows through completely. Instead, it operates in the gray zone. Limited disruption, strategic ambiguity, maximum pressure. Since late February, that pattern has returned, this time under fire. As US and Israeli strikes hit Iranian targets, Tehran didn't respond with direct escalation. It moved sideways. Ships began turning back, insurance costs surged, and then selective passage began. Some vessels blocked. Others allowed. 17 ships hit since the conflict began. And then comes a critical shift. Iran's parliament moves to formalize transit fees, transforming disruption into policy. This is where it gets complicated, because this is no longer just a military signal. It's an economic system. And it raises a deeper question. Is Iran testing control? Or building it? On the surface, the situation appears inconsistent. China-linked vessels pass through safely. Other ships hesitate or reroute entirely. The United States claims progress. Iran allows limited flow. But this is where the story shifts. This is not confusion. It's calibration. Iran is not closing the strait. It's managing it. Think of it as a faucet, not a blockade. Open slightly to ease pressure. Close partially to spike prices. And behind this, a quiet message forms. Iran can disrupt global oil flows without firing a single missile. Meanwhile, Washington escalates rhetorically, threatening to strike Karg Island, Iran's key export hub. So both sides are signaling, but neither is committing. And that creates the most dangerous condition of all, controlled instability. First, because when control exists, it can also be removed. Geography is doing most of the work here. The Strait of Hormuz is not just important, it is irreplaceable. There is no alternative sea route for Persian Gulf energy exports. At its narrowest point, shipping lanes shrink to just a few miles. And die. That means surveillance is easy. Disruption is easier. And control, if asserted, is extremely powerful. Iran sits along the entire northern edge of this corridor. Every tanker passes within reach. This changes the game entirely. Because Iran doesn't need naval dominance. It only needs persistent presence. Even small-scale interference, mines, drones, inspections, creates massive ripple effects. Shipping slows, insurance spikes. And this is where the real leverage emerges. Iran is turning geography into strategy. Not by closing the strait, but by making every crossing uncertain. Strategically, this is a shift from confrontation to control. Iran understands something fundamental. It cannot outmatch the US militarily, but it doesn't need to. By targeting energy flow, not forces, it changes the battlefield. Energy markets react instantly. Military responses take time. That gap is where Iran operates. Allowing select ships through, especially Chinese-linked ones, reveals intent. This is selective disruption, not chaos. It signals to major powers. Alignment matters. At the same time, it avoids triggering a full-scale military response, because a total shutdown would invite immediate retaliation. So instead, Iran is playing a longer game. Gradual pressure, economic signaling, controlled escalation. But the strategy carries risk. Because the more control Iran demonstrates, the more likely others will move to break it. But the other side tells a different story. From Washington's perspective, this is not strategic brilliance, it's provocation. The argument is simple. The Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway. No single country can control it. Efforts to impose tolls or restrict passage are seen as violations of global norms. That's why threats are escalating. Targeting Karg Island is not random, it's deliberate. It signals that if Iran weaponizes energy routes, its own energy infrastructure becomes a target. But there's a deeper concern: miscalculation. Because controlled disruption relies on precision. One wrong move, a sunk tanker, a misidentified vessel, and the situation escalates instantly, not gradually. And in this environment, even small incidents can trigger large responses. The effects are already spreading. Oil prices have surged more than 50%. Shipping routes are adjusting. Insurance premiums are climbing sharply. But this is only the first layer. Energy costs feed directly into inflation. Fuel prices rise. Transport costs increase. Supply chains tighten. And suddenly, a narrow strait in the Middle East affects daily life across the world. But the deeper shift is geopolitical. Countries are watching closely. China continues limited transit. Others hesitate. And other allies begin contingency planning. Because if Hormuz becomes unreliable, global energy systems must adapt. And that takes years, not weeks. Which means for now, the world remains exposed to a corridor just miles wide. So what happens next? Two paths are emerging. The first, controlled de-escalation. Iran continues selective passage. Negotiations quietly advance. Oil flows stabilize, but under constant tension. The second, rapid escalation. A single incident disrupts a major tanker. The US responds militarily. Iran retaliates, not by closing the strait completely, but by making it unusable. And that's the real risk. Not total shutdown, but sustained uncertainty. Because uncertainty drives markets harder than disruption. And Iran understands that. This is no longer about blocking ships. It's about controlling expectations. And if that control tightens, the next oil shock won't come from scarcity. It will come from fear. And that shift may already be underway. If you want to understand where this goes next, stay with GeoBrief.